In the last days of January 2009, Paducah experienced an event unlike any in its history, the Ice Storm 2009. And on today's City Profile, we're going to be talking with a couple of guys who know all about it. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to City Profile. I'm Tom Butler, and as I said in my introduction, today we're going to be talking about the Ice Storm 2009 and its effect on the people of the City of Paducah and its effect on the workers in the Public Works Department. And with me today I have Pat Stephenson and Ernie of the Public Works Department. Guys, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come in and just give us an overview of what happened from your point of view during the ice storm.
Well, from our point of view, like everybody, we were very busy and took what measures we could to try to turn this situation around. And with the cooperation of the citizens, we've done a good job and we're moving forward.
Well, let's start before the beginning of the storm, because that's where it all starts. I know that that we all knew that something was coming. Right. Of course, nobody could know the devastation that eventually happened, but we had weather reports for 2 or 3 days, maybe longer than that there was an ice event coming and there may be electrical shortages. Pat, how did your guys in the street department, how'd y'all respond in the early hours of this thing?
What we did, and when we get an event, a winter weather event coming where there's going to be frozen precipitation, we always get out and pre-treat our streets with our brine system. And that's what we did this time. We knew ahead of time it was coming, something was coming. We didn't know it was going to be to this extent. So we just got out and did our typical routine pre-treatment of the city streets with the brine.
Do you do all of them when you do something like that? Is that you totally do that, or do you have like when you're doing cleanup? I know you have priority areas. Mm-hmm. Do you have priority areas for the brine as well?
Yeah, we do. We start with our priority areas, and if we know plenty of time in advance, we can get the whole city pre-treated, every side street. But yeah, we start with our priority areas, and then once those are finished, then we start moving into the side streets and things like that.
And just as an aside, Ernie, we were talking before the program about the cost of the brine versus the salt, and to my surprise, the brine is much cheaper.
Sure. Salt is roughly about $10 a street mile to put down, where brine is down close to maybe 50 cents padded
or less than that.
Less than that to put it down. So you can see it's very cost effective. And as Pat mentioned, you can put it down in advance of the storm. As you mentioned, we actually had meetings with a lot of the city officials saying that the storm's coming in so we could start our preparation. And of course, Pat and his crew geared up along with other divisions within the department to be ready for this. So that's the advantage of brine, we can put it down ahead of time.
So I know that your department was the main thing, but did you call in other departments to say, hey, we're going to need some help in this, or how did y'all cooperate with other agencies within the city?
Yeah, it was pretty evident right off the bat that this was going to be a bad event. So right off, we shifted, or we platooned our employees. We started running 12-hour shifts around the clock. Of course, after we were pre-treating, we were kind of done with the streets. But as the ice started to grow onto the trees, things like the power lines, and things started falling, that's when we sent part of the people home at midnight, and we ran the people that were there. They ran a long day that one day, and then we started rotating 12-hour shifts, and we were calling in refuge people, we were calling in grounds people, we were calling in anybody that we could get in that could run a chainsaw. We were getting them there.
Was that the main priority, to clear the streets? Is that the first thing that you did?
Yes, that's the first thing to do.
Okay. Yep. So you had a system set up. First, we've got to get transportation routes open.
Right.
And then what?
Well, that took quite a few days to get the streets opened up. But we had so many obstacles. You know, the power lines. The power lines were what was so bad because, you know, for every limb that was down, there was power lines basically in them, and the power company was doing all they could do, you know, to try to get the lines up. And our people are taught if there is a tree across the road and it's blocking traffic, but it's got a power line in it, we leave it alone because our people are not trained to handle electricity lines and stuff like that. So we err on the side of caution, and we just went to places we knew we could clear. There was no lines. So that's why it took a little while to get some streets open, because Paducah Power was doing all they could do. And some of the other power companies that have stuff within the city were doing all they could do. So we just went and did what we could do till they could get their lines cleared. And on the same hand, we did work a lot with Paducah Power to get some major arteries open. You know, they would call us, say, we're going here, can y'all meet us? We would clear it, they'd get the line out, we'd clear it. So we worked together real well with Paducah Power.
Good. Did you have a command center? I mean,
yes,
that's what I
in fact,
you know,
yes.
call it.
There's an emergency operations center where all your state and different agencies from around the area come together. So we have a representative there, so we can all coordinate this. And as the storm grew in intensity and more limbs were coming down, we knew, okay, we're going to have to change our strategy, where normally our department would do their thing, Paducah Power do theirs. No, we teamed up at that point, as Pat said, okay, there's so many lines down, so many trees down, so many streets blocked. We did a team at work effort and went together. Later on, we actually met up with a gas company. Of course, you know, you had gas lines, meters were possibly could be broken. So it was a total joint effort, all handled through the Emergency Operations Center. And so we coordinated with each other on that and had reps in different places.
I've heard about, because I was out in the county when it happened, so I didn't get to experience anything in the city for several days, but describe the scene to me, because I know you were there when the storm started and all through it, and you drove around. Tell me how it looked.
It was a very eerie feeling and a very eerie place to be in, because nothing looked like Paducah. You know, it was dark. I was out, my days kind of ran together right there the first couple of days. I'm not even sure what night I was out, but it didn't even look like Paducah. Everything was dark. There was no people out. The trees and the ice and everything was hanging down. Trees, you could just stop, roll down your window, and you just hear stuff falling. Boom, boom, trees breaking, falling. You'd see flashes in the sky from transformers blowing up, just one right after another all over Paducah, and hear them and see them. And it was just a very scary feeling, because you felt like you were out there all by yourself, which some of us were, you know.
What were your recollections of that time?
Similar to Pat, my main concern, of course, was the safety of our folks. We're out there trying to do a damage assessment, as Pat described. And we have different folks going out in different areas. And as he mentioned, normally it's hard to realize what Paducah looks like without lights, and it's total dark. I mean, it just changes the whole terrain on you and everything else. And as Pat said, your depth perception, it was different. And then, of course, trees falling in front of us. Sometimes actually one fell in front of us and behind us. We actually had to get out and cut our way out of different areas and even to get into work. It was, like I said, nothing like we've ever experienced before.
And there were 2 rounds to this storm. We had one, if my recollection was correct, on a Monday night into Tuesday morning, kind of had a pause.
Right.
And then we had another round come in Tuesday and Tuesday night. So y'all were just working through that whole time.
Right, we never stopped. We had people running 24 hours.
So what was the impact on the electrical grid and on Paducah? I know Kentucky had hundreds of thousands.
700,000 folks out of power at one point from the initial phase of the storm. Right. They've never had that many people out at any time in their history they can remember or recorded. So quite a few folks without power. And of course, this affected gas stations, everything, stores and everything. So,
have any idea how many power lines, not power lines, power poles were snapped off, broken? Hundreds?
Hundreds.
I
thousands.
believe, Jackson Purchase said something about just around this area, over 200 or 300 were down. And I know I'm like you, where I lived, there were several poles down all over the roads and everything else. And so it was, like I said, something like you wouldn't imagine would ever happen here.
Yeah. Well, and what you said is so true, though. You don't want guys out there that aren't trained with electricity to be out chopping down a tree or whatever, because you just never know what's going to happen. You know, if I had to buy my first chainsaw, and I'm real cautious because that thing can hurt you bad real quick. And so want to make sure that the guys know what they're doing, because you know, you don't want to make a bad situation worse by having somebody get hurt.
Right. All of our people are highly trained on how to use chainsaws and to stay away from hazards like the electrical lines and all this. And I got to say that our public works people, went way above and beyond. This was a disaster like nobody's ever seen.
Yeah.
These guys were there. They knew what they had to do, and I couldn't be more proud of these guys. They worked hard. They worked long hours at night, which is very dangerous because there is no light. You're cutting trees. You can't see some of the lines that are in these trees. It's just a very, very dangerous thing, and these guys did a great job.
The other thing that you have to deal with in any kind of disaster like this is that the guys who are there that need to be working also have trouble at home.
Absolutely.
You're right.
We had a few that had problems.
Yeah, several had trees come down on top of their house, and they did what they could, secured their family, and came on in.
Wow. Because I mean, that's a real dedication
It
right
is.
there.
It absolutely is, and
to
they
come
did
in
it fantastic. I can't say enough.
Because you care so much about your job and the people that you're working for, that you come in. So you told me that they came in. You didn't even have to call them.
No, people just started showing up because we couldn't call a lot of people because lines were down, cell phone service was none. You know, it was all down.
And that's part of our preparation. Once we went to 12-hour shifts, we told the folks, be here at your exchange time, especially as we knew that the situation was getting worse, that we probably won't be able to communicate. And all of them, like I said, they stepped up and came in.
So Noble Park is still mostly closed.
Mostly closed.
How is, I've just pictured what that's like. What's it look like in Noble Park?
A lot of it's the hangars, what they call the Widowmakers, or the hangars are up there. A lot of trees are damaged, and you've probably seen driving along H.C. Mathis, there was a big tree that fell on top of a shelter. We had a few shelters that were damaged, but a lot of it's just the hangars that's up there. We've cleaned up a bunch of debris, but until we can get the larger pieces of equipment, our equipment is kind of at this time, because of the height of the trees, we can't get all the way up in that. So now we're waiting for the contractor to go in through there.
And those things may never come down, or they may come down
right when you walk under.
Right when you walk under. We had at least one fatality where a guy got struck by falling debris out with a chainsaw. So that's another place that people got to be really careful, is that kind of stuff. So we've gone through the storm. You're getting everything cleared. How long did this go on for the major part where people were working a lot of overtime and just doing crazy
we
work
went
hours?
Almost a week, 5 full days of the 12-hour rotation, the 12-hour shifts, and then we went 10-hour days. The following week, the following Monday, we went to a 10-hour shift for 6 days. And to make sure we had all the streets open, all the alleys open where traffic could go through them, and then we kind of backed off.
Okay, so that was the main deal, though, was getting the streets cleaned and stuff like that.
Right.
Because it's the residents that have to do their yards.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, simultaneously as we're doing that, though, a lot of shelters were started up around the city and the armory. Unfortunately, because folks were trying to do their own recovery, we went ahead and used our maintenance people and our other services people to help out when they had problems at the shelter, as far as some mechanical problems and other problems. So we were doing several different roles along with that. Our supervisors worked at least 18 hours a day. So even though the others went home at 12, our supervisors were there, and we were manned 24 hours at our operations center for about 2 weeks. We ran that 24-hour schedule.
Yeah. In fact, we had a couple of the supervisors that stayed about 3 days straight because they couldn't go home. They didn't have no power, no nothing, and we did have a place to take a shower and a place they could sleep there.
Yeah, a place to eat and everything else. So it was kind of a refuge for them to come and that. Similar to the solid waste, a lot of folks, we couldn't get the word out on the solid waste service, so we just continuously ran, and then as folks called us in, we explained to them, and little by little as communications picked up and everything else, but we steadily had our services going, doing what we could out there.
So we've got what some are calling the worst disaster in Kentucky history, and that's saying a lot when you think that in 1937 we had a flood that went all the way to up Jefferson Street here. So it's a significant event. So we've got a lot of stuff yet to do. But can you give us an or an idea, because I can't really picture in my head. I go down every street in Paducah and there are piles and piles of wood, and out off Puryear Drive at Husbands Road there's a giant pile of wood. How much stuff was out there and is still out there?
A good rule is the Hurricane Ike windstorm, when it was all said and done, we collected about 25,000 cubic yards of debris. This storm, the estimates, that Hurricane Ike storm is only about 6% of what's actually out there now from this ice storm. So they're estimating roughly 400,000 cubic yards or better of material on the ground right now. That doesn't include what's still in the trees to be cut down, the hangers, widowmakers, that's what's on the ground. So that's a tremendous amount. That's, to put it in perspective, that would be as big as the Jackson House building is downtown. It would take 6 Jackson houses stacked up, piled up, however you want to do it, is the amount of debris that's on the ground out there to be cleaned
That's
up.
huge. So if the Jackson House were just a shell,
Yeah.
Right.
then it would take 6 of those.
Yeah.
To fill
And you
up
figure
into
that's
the
a
sky.
20-story building there. So you take 6
Approximately 200 feet tall.
Right, yeah, so you take 6 of those, like Pat said, side by side, or if someone wants to put it in a different perspective, an F-150 extended cab pickup truck, 14,000 of those side by side or stacked. That's how much debris in Paducah. So
my
there's a
goodness.
lot of debris.
A lot of debris. And so now that's what you're doing now.
Right.
Right.
Is the cleanup
Cleanup.
part of it. And as of this taping, the city has contracted with someone to,
With a firm out
With
of, from down south.
From Florida to do that, and they are on the ground right now picking up, and will be for several months. And they figure maybe about 90 days they can have it up. They'll take a small break during the quilt show, but they'll have the main places. Then they'll come back in and finish up.
are they going by priority routes as well, or are they just going?
No, they've broke the city up. This group, they've broken the city up into 24 zones, and each group is assigned to a zone. They'll get through their zone, and then they'll start again.
What kind of equipment are they bringing in?
A lot of people have probably already seen these things or will have seen them. It's just a big box truck, big open top box truck pulling a big trailer with a clam on top of it, and they can just literally pull up beside, load the truck, and go on down the road.
Yeah, I've seen them, and they can pick up a lot in one scoop, for lack of a better term, and then, but it just doesn't seem like the trucks are hardly big enough to put very much in.
It's just because there's so much out there.
Out there, yeah.
Yeah.
It will take. They will make 3 passes through the city. The first pass will be basically get what's laying out there. Second pass, people start pushing stuff out as soon as their yard gets cleaned up, and that's just how much debris is still laying in the backyard and the other yards. So they'll have to make three passes through
Yeah.
the city.
Are you happy with so far with the community response, or people putting out stuff the way they're supposed to? I've gone by some houses, not necessarily in the city, and like I know that y'all ask that you don't put stuff in the ditches because they clog it up. Well, that's impossible sometimes.
Right, it is.
Because at my house, I don't have any perimeter of my
Right.
yard that's not a ditch.
Right.
So if they were gonna come by my house, I would have no choice but to stack stuff in the ditch or away. How far into the yard will they come, or?
They'll go as far as they can reach with their machine, and it'll probably reach 10 or 15 foot from the
Okay.
edge of the road.
So they might be able to
Yeah.
work it a little bit farther back.
Right.
And
And you're right, people ran out of room to put this stuff. There was so much of it. Yeah, a lot of it ended up in the ditches, and luckily we did have some pretty heavy rains there during all this, and we didn't experience any flooding, which was was good because we were very concerned about that. But now these guys are coming through. Hopefully within the first couple of weeks they can make their first round through the city, and then like Ernie said, if you've still got debris to pick up, once they've moved your pile, get the rest of it back out there because they'll be back quick.
I think now too, the citizens are understanding this. At first, everybody just wanted, let's get this stuff, pushed, and they realized there's just too much to keep pushing out there, and it was causing some hazard in some roads. So folks have settled down there. In fact, I think they're doing a fantastic job, and now they see what the routine's going to be, and I think it's going to go very well for everybody.
But just, I want to make sure people understand what you just told me, because I didn't know this. They're going to make more than one pass.
There's gonna
Yes.
be, yeah.
Because I would be afraid, oh man, if I don't get it out there and get it all where it needs to be, then I'm going to be out of luck.
No, once they've made their initial run through, then as soon as your stuff's gone, quick as you can, get back out there because they'll be back, like I say, within another couple of weeks probably.
Yeah. And they'll be going through the alleys as well as the main streets and everything else. 'Cause we have some alleys right now still blocked. I mean, we just had, like I said, we have no place to put it.
Right. And you have suspended, is this correct, trash pickup in the alleys?
Yes, we've suspended that till further notice. And again, we have to have the alleys totally open. the alleys are so narrow, just on a good day, it's hard to get some of the trucks down through these alleys, let alone something like this. Plus, there's still some low-hanging lines, and as we're going through there at dark, again, it poses a lot of safety hazards, and there's a lot of widow makers, so that's why we said the prudent thing to do is pull back out. We know it's an inconvenience for a lot of folks, but everybody kind of calmed down, and they're working very well with them. We appreciate that, what they're doing.
So I'm sure most people by now know what they're supposed to do with their rollout containers, but if they don't, what are they supposed to do with them?
Put them on the main street in front of their house, and the guys will come down. Again, it makes it hard because there's a lot of brush piled up there along with parked cars. But I think everybody, again, is starting to cooperate very well, and our drivers we're all having to make adjustments, but it's going well at this point.
So the estimate right now is this going to be 90 days, give or take,
Right.
Roughly,
for
yes.
Roughly,
them
yeah.
to get most of the debris up. Now, what happens once it's in the truck and they're full? Where do they go, and what is happening with the debris?
They've got several staging areas around Paducah. The contractor that's working for the City of Paducah, they've got a staging area that's all their own. And then there's some other places, Central Paving out on Clarks River Road, they're taking it from the public. City residents can take their debris to our compost facility on 8th Street. But from what I understand, what the contractors that are doing the city cleanup, that stuff will be ground. They'll bring a big tub grinder in and they'll chip it all up.
I didn't know that you would take at the 8th Street station big stuff.
Well, no, we do have a size limit, and that's why we're telling residents, if you're bringing it in yourself, and most of those just have smaller trailers and everything else, but we have put out rules and guidelines that keep them within a certain size. For instance, no bigger than 18 inches and no longer than 8 foot, because we have limited space, and on our equipment, we have a limitation on what we can do.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I've been looking into chippers just to see, and you can't chip up stuff unless and y'all have got great equipment, but still, you can always use something bigger. And I've seen some giant trees down.
And this contractor, they are going to bring in a big one.
Yeah, they're bringing
They'll
in
be able to
giant
handle
chippers,
the large logs and things like that. So
Okay, so they're going to be doing a lot of mulching then.
Right.
yes,
And is that at the 8th Street facility, or all around they're going to be doing a lot of that?
they'll be doing that just at their sites. Now
Oh, at their
we will
site.
do ours at the
8th Street.
8th Street, and then I believe Central Paving's also chipping out there.
Out there.
So which is what the state likes to see done versus burning. Of course, out in the county you can burn, in the city you can't burn.
Right.
So the state would rather see, because it's more environmentally friendly,
Sure.
to chip it up, and then they can use it for mulch or
That's
whatever.
what I was wondering. That was going to be my next question: is is there going to be some effort to allow people to come in and get that stuff? Or I know there's been some talk about taking some to West Vaco for them to use and things like that. Do you know what's going to happen with it?
I don't think that has it been.
Hadn't really been dealt with or talked about yet.
Yeah.
Of course, at our facility, we make compost with ours,
Right.
and that is a product that we sell throughout the year. Right now, we're not selling a lot because we really can't get to it because the chips have got it blocked off and all the brush. So, this summer when things get somewhat back to normal, we'll be selling our product again.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
I'd like to have some mulch, because if I had a big chipper, I'd have all I could use. I'll
You're
tell
right.
you that right now. So you have hired a company, but still that doesn't take away from what the Public Works Department still has to do.
Oh, absolutely not.
You're right. Well, we still have areas, for instance, Oak Grove Cemetery, and there's stuff we are having to pull out and pile up. The contractor will come by and pick it up. But initially, it's like homeowners have to clean up their yard. Well, Public Works has to go clean up the city yard. For instance, down
Okay.
around City Hall, we had to rake the yard, but piled it all on the side. Around the parks, it's the same thing. So our crews are out there still working and
Okay.
everything.
So that's what you guys are doing now, is you're doing what the homeowners are doing in their places, at the parks and the cemeteries.
Cemetery.
How many cemeteries? Is there only one
Well,
city?
the one city on Oak Grove Cemetery.
Well, I bet there's a lot of
Yes,
stuff
and
down
there's
there.
a lot of stuff down.
There is.
So that'll take several man hours
Oh,
just to.
And we're getting
clear
it in
that.
really good shape right
yeah.
now. We've really concentrated on it because there's funerals scheduled and people need to get in there and use that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
Is that
than
going to be
park.
a priority before, say, Noble Park is?
Yes, right. Because this is people are waiting to be buried.
Right.
You know,
Public health
so-
issue.
Yeah.
could
Right.
Public,
conceivably.
right. And the fact that in Noble Park, the height of some of the trees and our equipment can't get up to get that. The widow makers that are hanging
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So we'll have to let the contractor with his bigger equipment come in.
Right.
Did y'all have generators, or did you have power at the beginning of this? How did that work out? Because nobody had power.
Well,
except for a
initially we
few
had
places.
power, then we lost power for a couple days, but even when we lost power, we had some small generators and we just operated what we could with our small ones. Luckily, Paducah Power got us up pretty fast, understanding what we needed, that we needed to go on. But we continued to operate 24/7 with the batteries and and generators
And flashlights.
going, flashlights.
Yeah.
So-
I know there was some issues statewide with communication. Did y'all have those type of issues as well?
Yeah, we had AT&T phones also. We lost all of our phones. Luckily, we have an 800 megahertz radio system. So we did that and did a lot of what we call Paul Revere, where we actually have to send runners and to check on things. But that's the way you have to do it in a case like this. So
Right.
it just slowed us down a little bit, but at the same token, it didn't stop us.
Well, we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left, and I think that the question I'd like to ask now is, you can't really prepare ultimately for an event like this or an earthquake or anything like that. So what, did you go back after when things calmed down a little bit, or do you plan to go back and say, here's what happened, let's evaluate what we did it work, is there something that we want to do different so that we can, you can never be too prepared.
Right.
We've actually had a department download session, and then the city's going to have a download session, and then the county. So each entity will have their own, and then we'll all get together and say, okay, what do we need? Some of the shortfalls, for instance, our generators don't run the whole building, it's just certain areas. And so some of the things like that, as Pat mentioned earlier, our radio system's on one tower. Well, if something happened to that tower, we wouldn't have had any radio. So it's little things like that. I mean, like I said, we could operate, and we did stay up in operation, but there's some little things that would have made life a lot easier and everything. And so this was a good exercise to look at ourselves hard. And then FEMA also comes in after the fact, after the post-disaster, and said, look, you guys need to have this, this, and this to be ready for the next disaster. So they have some provisions to help.
Have they done that yet?
No, they're getting this first phase out. We know it's coming, so that's why we're having our downloading sessions
Okay.
now. So we'll be prepared when FEMA comes
Because
in.
I'd like to, get you guys to come back and talk to me about what FEMA recommends too, just because that'd be interesting. Pat, any closing words?
No, this was just something that, as much as we were prepared, we were still awestruck with this thing. We had no idea. And the people of Paducah, the employees of Paducah, from the City Hall employees, the fire, police, everybody really did a great job in handling this event. People, neighbors helped neighbors. It was impressive to see how everybody came together when times really got tough.
Good. Ernie, final thoughts?
One real quick thing, people need to understand that the tree damage is going to go on. We're going to see the effects of this for probably the next year, maybe a year and a half. And so they just need to be prepared and don't get overly zealous and stuff and cutting back trees or anything else. Give nature a chance to kind of take care of its own.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here on City Profile. I'm Tom Butler. Join us again next time.